feel like a changed person for having written it. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, Just Another Struggling Writer, the beleaguered author's one-stop shop for commiseration and hopefully inspiration. My name is Carrie Scher, and I am just another struggling writer. Well, today is June 2nd, and that means it is time for another cozy writing wrap-up for you. And this one is a doozy because I actually got a lot of writing done. And as always, while we chat, I'm going to be updating my nail color. I am taking off Chicago Champagne Toast and putting on Reality Check Ya Out, which is this nice kind of blue color. May started off kind of rough. I had been struggling to get through the end portion of what would be the fourth act in the, the third act in the 6-act structure. I finally finished that damn fight scene around the 60% mark of the book, and I was having a really hard time coming through that for some reason. Even though I had my outline, and even though theoretically the scenes that came after the fight scene should have been easier, the fight scene was really, really hard, and I really labored through that for several weeks also. Getting back into it in the aftermath of that fight scene was also really difficult for some reason. And I was just feeling super demotivated. I was slumping mentally a lot through April. We had some personal stuff come up, kind of whammied us back to back, and that made it hard. Some financial stuff. It was just kind of difficult to prioritize writing when so much of my mental energy was going into just navigating real life. And then when I would try to get back into writing, I would just feel so disconnected and so discouraged by that disconnection that I didn't want to write, or I would have trouble, or I wasn't sure of myself or what I was doing. There are moments where I was blocked, where I felt like I had written myself into a corner and was really struggling with coming up with fresh ideas on how to navigate my plan. And so at the beginning of May, I was in a little bit of a whirlpool of just negativity. And that doesn't go for just writing. I was feeling that in a lot of other areas of my life as well. Content creation was suffering. I wasn't reading a lot or even enjoying what I was reading. And then I just came out of it. I don't know how else to describe it. I finally was like, I've got to get this book finished. I'm so close to the end because at that point, I was at something like 75 or close to 80% done. And I didn't want to be lingering in the first draft anymore. I wanted to get into revision so bad that I needed to force my way through it. So I did. I just kind of bull rushed my way through the end, and as of 13 hours ago, I have indeed finished the first draft. Hold for applause, hold for applause. Yes, it is indeed, as of this moment, complete at exactly, and I love this is my favorite thing, 106,300 words. It came out to an even number. Isn't that crazy? And I'm really proud of it. And this marks the first time in 6 years that I have finished a draft, but this one is somehow more special than that first one because it's actually complete. I had always felt a little weird about that first story that I wrote, that first draft that I managed to finish, because there were moments in it where I would feel stuck or blocked or having trouble with my ideas. And what I would do, my answer to that was to just skip it and move on. And I never went back and actually filled those gaps in. And so it was there were places in that draft that were empty. There were places in the draft that were didn't have names and they were just in brackets, like placeholders. And while I think that's a totally valid way to do a first draft, if that works for you, it never quite sat right with me. And that kind of is part of the reason why I spent so many months last year planning through pretty much everything that I would need to draft Seekers of Empyrean, because I didn't want to be stuck. I never wanted to find myself in a position where I would have to skip anything or to even give myself an excuse to skip something. I wanted it to be complete, and it is. From start to finish, you could read through this draft and have a complete story. Now, it'll be a mess. There'll be questions that go unanswered that I need to bring in more firmly in revision, but it is complete. And so in that way, this draft feels like it's breaking new ground for me. If we want to talk numbers, I finished out the month with almost 30,000 words at 29,642, and the vast majority of those were in the last like 12 or 13 days of the month. I kind of refused to take no for an answer, and I sat down and I did it. And like 11 or 12, like 11,000 of those were just in the last 2 days on Saturday and Sunday. It was an intense period, but like I said, I just got to a point where I was not going to accept another excuse. I was not, even though I could have just gone to bed last night and say, I'll write the epilogue in the morning, I didn't want to. I wanted to get it all finished. I wanted to make it complete. And I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I did. But of course, as all writers know, just because you complete the first draft does not mean the work stops. Oh no, I've got revisions to do now. But I'm really excited for revision. I am probably the rare author that prefers to be in the revision phase and the planning phase. I like making plans. What can I say? And drafting is actually the harder part for me. So I'm super, super excited about finally putting a bow on the draft. And now I'm afforded the opportunity to make it better. And I'm so excited about that. I'm so beyond excited for that. Something else I did in anticipation of making it to revision was I created from the template of my old scene outline worksheet, I created a scene revision worksheet. I'm gonna look like a mermaid with these nails. I love it. And with that worksheet, my plan is to use them to go scene by scene through the draft and kind of do a post-mortem, you know, like this is what happened in the scene. These are the plot beats and story arcs and character arcs that are featured in the scene. This is how I think I can make the scene better. This is what I thought the word count would be. This is what the word count actually ended up being. Do I think I can cut it? And if so, why? Or on the other hand, is the scene worth keeping? And if so, why? And from there, I hope to get a head start on my draft 2 outline, because yes, there will be an outline of draft 2. And the process will just go on from there, which I'm sure we'll talk a lot about in my June wrap up. But creating that worksheet was just provided added motivation to finish the draft because I wanted to be able to use it. And there were days even where I was wondering like, well, I don't feel like drafting right now, but what if I just did the first couple of scenes with this worksheet? And I knew that was a trap, because if I did that, then I was never going to finish. I was just going to fall into the, well, I don't need to write the ending, let me just make it better already. And I'm glad I did not do that, because I got so much out of the ending. I figured out how to bring back plot points and reintroduce them or tie them up or resolve them in a way that almost felt natural. And so that made me feel really, really good as a writer who can kind of weave disparate plot elements together. And it also like gave me new ideas for revision and plot arcs that I can introduce in the sequels. So choosing to draft the end before even touching revision was definitely a good idea. There was a writer that I used to follow. She had a podcast who would do it that way. She would like draft like 80% of the book and then revise it and then write the ending. And I can see how that makes a little bit of sense because the ending is so critical. Like I can see why you would want to go through and make the rest of it perfect before doing the ending, so that way you only have to do it once. I kind of see it. I mean, obviously still want to revise the ending, even if you do it last, but anyway. But I'm glad that I did not take that approach because I got so much out of writing the ending. Another thing that I did in May, writing-wise, that I'm pretty excited about is I opened myself up to beta read for people, and while I have gotten some takers, I haven't been able to actually get started on any of that because I've been so focused on my draft. But now that that's complete and I'm actually like on vacation this week, I am really looking forward to doing some of that work because not only do I want to like give back to the community that's really helped me, but I also think that it'll make me a better writer in the end. Seeing other people's unfinished work and asking them questions and answering their questions, I think it'll really inform me of what I can expect when I'm at that point in my journey and how I can take those lessons that I am part of as a beta reader and apply them to my own work. I also open myself up for critique partners, and that is still open. Obviously, I just have a first draft, and that's not really critique worthy just yet because it's, you know, it was just an exercise really in telling myself the story. But my goal is to do the second and third drafts pretty rapidly. I hope to have both draft 2 and 3 done by the end of the year. Now, let's all be fair. Draft 1, I started on like September 26th and finished on June 1st. So 8 months is my benchmark at the moment. And I think even that very first draft that I talked about from 6 years ago, I started during Nano and finished around the same time, around my birthday. So 6 to 8 months is looking like my standard. But that's just for first drafts. Who knows? Once I get into revision, it may go even faster. I don't know. I've never done this part before, and that's what makes me so excited. But I would really, really, really love to have a second draft done before the end of the summer, then get started on draft 3. And I will obviously need critique partners once I get to those later drafts. And I am still really hoping to find a few critique partners. So open call. If you write fantasy and read fantasy and are a big fan of fantasy and you're early in the process like I am, I would love to be your critique partner. So that's May. It was kind of a wild ride, a slow start for sure, and then picking up at an absolutely breakneck speed towards the end and finishing out with like the ultimate triumph of finishing the draft. And I am so pleased and so grateful for everyone who supported me along the way, who dropped nice comments or even just a like on the videos of my journeys. It was just so validating to be seen and to be supported throughout what was kind of a difficult time. As I said, drafting is not easy for me. Looking ahead to June, as I said, my plan is to spend the next 3 weeks putting together a revision plan. I'm going to start with this post-mortem outline. And once that's done, then my plan is to move on to taking like extensive notes on which subplots and character arcs I want to more fully integrate. I didn't think I had a lot, but as I got towards the end, I kept going, oh, this is technically a running theme, or this is another arc that should be explored. And so now I've probably got a lengthy list, probably too many. So I need to decide what should stay, what can be winnowed back, and what can be trimmed entirely, or what needs to be brought to the forefront. I've already got some ideas on that. And once I've got kind of all that figured out, then I need to move into the outline phase. I don't know if I will do like my first draft of the outline like I did with the draft 1 outline. What I did then, if you don't want to go back and watch that whole saga, what I did was I did an outline in my notebook, just a sort of a list of scenes in order, just saying this is who is in this scene, this is where they're at, and this is what happens. And I did a list that way. I kind of played with it and revised it, and then once I was satisfied with it, I transferred them into my scene outline worksheets, which were so much more detailed. I don't know if I'm going to do that whole process then, because I think that's just too much to try and cram into 3 weeks. So I may go straight to the scene outline worksheets and go from there. That also sort of makes sense. I don't need to come up with the first draft of an outline because the first draft is the first draft of the outline. So we'll see. That's the main goal, and we'll take up the bulk of June, getting a revision plan in place. And then of course I would like to start writing on June 22nd, the first day of summer, and hopefully try and finish before the end of the summer so I can do all of this again and then start draft 3 for Finish Your Book Fall. And I am very seriously thinking about making it an event. Obviously, I can never replace what Nano was, nor do I think I want to, but I would like to be involved with a sort of community event where, in the spirit of Nano, we all gather together and participate in a collective writing challenge where we are all seeking to, in this case, finish our books before the end of fall. Now that the drafting process is done, I'm going to be thinking a little bit more deeply about that and how I want to tackle that. I am not a community organizer. I am a lurker by heart. And so this is not something that comes naturally to me at all. But I have ideas. And if someone, again, open call, if you do get a lot of fulfillment out of that sort of community organizing and you are open to working with me on some ideas on maybe launching this community event, I would love to hear from you. But for now, that just about wraps up everything. Obviously, the big ticket item is finishing that damn first draft. And oh my gosh, I learned so much from it that I feel like a changed person for having written it. And I'm so glad that I undertook this journey with you guys, because I do not think, and I'm so serious when I say this, I do not think I could have done it without you, without the public accountability, without the desire to come on here and say I made progress, or I did this, or I hit this checkpoint, or I finished. I have started and stopped so many other projects in the past between these two completed first drafts of 6 years, with 6 years of distance between them, and I never really was able to get them completely off the ground until this last calendar year, when I launched the playlist of picking which project I would work on, the brainstorming and world building phase, to the outlining, and then finally to start the actual draft. Again, a lot of the motivation came from being accountable and having the support of you guys. I wish I could say I was a self-starter and that I didn't need that, but it is clear to me now how much I bask in it and feed off of it. And so thank you so much. If you ever left a comment on one of my writing videos, if you ever even just left a like, or if you hosted a live stream that I participated in, or if you said well done at any point, that directly fed into this moment where I can say I finally finished a draft. And not just that I finished it, but that I'm proud of it. Obviously it's imperfect and incomplete and needs more work, but like, I'm proud of this first draft in a way that I was not proud of that 2019 draft. I just feel so grateful and like so much larger as a writer. Like, I've expanded and grown, and I can't wait. I cannot wait. In fact, as soon as my nails are dry, I'm going to be getting into that postmortem outline and into the revision phase proper. And again, I couldn't have done it without you. So with that, thank you so much for watching. I so appreciate it. If you like my content and want to support the channel, please like and subscribe, or consider leaving a comment down below. I always say leave a painting nails emoji whenever I'm painting my nails, but I feel like that's getting a little old because I'm doing it a lot lately. So if you want to leave like a blue color emoji of your choice, that would be great in the comments below. In my next video, I will have my final drafting vlog for you, and you can kind of see how that whole process of writing those last 15,000 words went, because my goal was to have it done by Sunday, June 1st, and on Friday, May 30th, I still had like 14,000 words left to go. So if you want to see how that all played out, I highly recommend you check it out. I hope you look forward to it, and I will see you then. Bye.